You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
At the LASIK Vision Institute, we know LASIK is a big decision, and every one of our patients is unique. That's why we customize your LASIK journey to you.
I only have a certain budget.
No problem. Right now at the LASIK Vision Institute, get 20% off LASIK when treated in April. That can be over $900 off when treating both eyes, plus guaranteed financing options. So visit GetLVILASIK.com today to start your journey towards 20/20 vision. Must mention this promotion and be treated in April of 2024 to qualify. 20% off standard price of Wave Light procedure. Cannot be combined with any other offers. Go to GetLVILASIK.com for details. At the LASIK Vision Institute, we know LASIK is a big decision, and every one of our patients is unique. That's why we customize your LASIK journey to you.
I'm so busy right now.
We offer a mix of convenient days and times, including 30-minute virtual appointments to fit your schedule.
I would love it, but I have astigmatism.
We treat thousands of patients with astigmatism every month with great outcomes. The LASIK Vision Institute is making your journey towards 20/20 vision all about you. So visit GetLVILASIK.com today to start your LASIK journey.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop-up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, I drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
Ready to stand out, Army ROTC prepares you not only as a college student, but as a strong leader, allowing you to earn the rank of second lieutenant. You will be eligible for full tuition merit-based scholarships and develop leadership skills essential for your future. Start strong and enhance your college experience. Visit your campus Army ROTC representative today. To find out how you can earn up to a full tuition scholarship, visit goarmy.com/podcast to locate your closest ROTC program today. Army officers inspire strength in others. Paid for by the United States Army.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a fun new episode of He Said, She Said. I am your hostess, Aggie, and with me is our awesome producer, Rick. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right until I realized I had loaded the wrong intro, and I was like, wait a minute, there's not supposed to be a record scratch there. What did I do? Oh, that's what I did. Never mind.
Is it the wrong intro? I don't...
No, well, it was the right beginning of the intro, but I was like, this is really long. Why is this so long? And then because I didn't realize that I accidentally loaded the Skynet one.
Got it.
So right as I started fading it down, there was a record scratch, and I'm like, yeah, that's the wrong one. Anyway.
It still worked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it has been kind of a fun week for me here. It never rains this far south in Texas, and so far it has rained 3 days out of this week. So, of course, my mom calls every day to check on her plants and stuff. She's beside herself. She's so happy. Yeah, she doesn't call to ask me how I'm doing, mind you. Just she wants to make sure the plants don't die.
How are my plants? I'm fine, Mom. Thanks for asking.
She cracks me up. How's y'all's weather? I know that you had some really crappy weather the past few weeks.
Oh, yeah, it's, what happened to April showers bring May flowers? Now we're halfway through May, and I have tornadoes and everything else popping up all around me. I think we're good again until Thursday this next week, so far. But the problem is, they keep getting the forecast wrong. Because you look, and it's like, oh, it's not going to rain for like 5-6 days. And it's like, then 2 days later, it's like, just kidding, here's some rain. Like,
No.
Isn't that how hard it is to do everything I'm trying to do outside and everything else when there's like surprise rain showers every other day? Really?
Well, it's actually on par. This is what really kind of freaks me out a little bit. Is that if you go to the weather tracker for El Nino and La Nina, those weather patterns that we have every year, La Nina is having a tantrum. So that is reflected in the rough weather that we've been experiencing here, and not just here, I mean, throughout Western Europe as well, and South America. So, but it's funny because I haven't heard any of that mentioned. In none of the weather forecasts have even mentioned La Nina or El Nino, nothing. But you do get to hear a lot about climate change, And I'm like, I'm sure that La Nina is throwing a tantrum because she's being forgotten. Let's face it, we women are like that. So
yeah, I was gonna say this is the female iteration of this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar, we often hear about El Nino, but La Nina is the one that's really tempestuous. That's the bad one. So when it acts up, that's when you're going to get your rough weather. And you hear more about El Nino because it's like more popular or something. But yeah, La Nina also exists, and she's a bitch. I'm just going to call it like it is.
Kind of like the rest of Mother Nature's mood swings. She's a bitch.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So, wow. Even Eric is saying they had a tornado touchdown inside the Pittsburgh Zoo just a few hours ago. So it's rough. The weather is really rough. Austin had massive torrential rainstorm move through. I think it was yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you guys couldn't have the show, because Jen didn't have internet. And I was looking at pictures of the city streets and everything, and I was just like, yeah, I last time I saw that, I think I was in San Antonio. It was 1998. It's like, holy crap. Yeah. So, yeah, it's all going around, sadly.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, everything that I've been trying to do for like the last month has been pushed back by like 2 weeks at a time so far. Because it's like, oh, we're supposed to have like a 3 or 4 day stretch with no rain. And then we don't. And then I'm like, okay, well, I can't do half the things I'm trying to do because my garage is detached from my house. So to get ready for the Exterminator, which we finally got to do round 1 today, and then they get to come back Tuesday. But to get ready for the exterminator, we had to basically move everything out of the house like we didn't live here anymore. Which is really, really hard to do in the rain. So
it is.
I kept having to say, well, yeah, guys, this stuff right here can't get wet, so we're going to have to wait. And then we're going to have to wait. So, yeah, he's like, well, I really want to get you guys finished because, we're talking about me becoming a client of yours, and I really want to get that started. I'm like, dude, you've already earned my business. I've had to move these appointments like 4 times in the last 3 weeks, and you've been cool with it every single time. That alone is enough for you to have won me over as a potential client. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, that is. It's nice when they accommodate you as well, because it is a business and they have to look out for themselves. But if they're willing to go the extra mile for a potential client, then that's really cool.
Yeah, he's like, you're like our highest priority client on the calendar right now. So if you need to move, we'll move. I'm like, I'm sold. But yeah, anyway. So my internet has started to go silly. So hopefully we can get through the next little less than 90 minutes before it crashes. So yeah. I hate it when it does this just randomly. It's like, hey, you're going to have a gateway failure. Fucker, are you ready for it? No, not really. And it's a cascade failure every single time. I tested everything out and then got Skype working and then called you. And now every single browser tab I try to pull up says page cannot be displayed. But everything's still broadcasting. It's really confusing. Anyway.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely... Yeah, as a former IT guy who admittedly has been out of the game for a bit, this is one of the weirdest things I've seen. So, because it happens about 3 times a week, and I'm just randomly. But yeah, I think it's because I have so many devices connected. I think one of them somewhere is causing an IP conflict that eventually throws this one off, which still makes 0 sense hierarchy wise because this machine is directly connected to the router and should take priority. So I don't understand why that keeps happening, but it's happening. So
that is weird.
Yeah, everything in my IT brain is like does not compute. But here we are.
Well, it's like, I can't say it's Greek to me because I kind of know a little Greek. So it's more like Finnish to me.
Oh God, is Jeff in the chat? Because I can't see the chat.
Because Finland doesn't exist.
I was gonna say, is Jeff in the chat? Because I can't see the chat right now. He's gonna start typing Finnish sentences, and everybody's gonna get really confused. And anyway,
no, I don't think it's shown up yet, so we're safe.
Nice.
When I mean the whole Finland doesn't exist. Finland isn't real. I don't know. I always wanted to go to Finland, but in the summer, because there's no freaking way I'm traveling up there in the winter.
Yeah, I mean, why would you?
I know several people that prefer to take their winter cruises rather than summer cruises. They like to go to places during the winter, like not a winter cruise in the southern hemisphere, but in the northern hemisphere. Like,
yeah,
what?
They're a special brand. They're a special brand of special. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, it's not my thing. Although I am planning on taking a river cruise. They have one for the Mississippi, and I've been looking into it, and I'm thinking, yeah, I kind of want to do this. I haven't been to, I think maybe 2 of the, well, if you count, Louisiana, Mississippi. I drove through Mississippi and Louisiana, so I kind of been in those 2, but I'd like to see more. I haven't been up in the Midwest and through the Mississippi or anything like that. So it sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, I've noticed, which is weird, because for me, I don't watch very many commercials, but I have started to a little bit, because I've been watching a little bit more stuff on regular TV, and I've just kind of gotten to the point where instead of fast-forwarding through the commercials, I'll just do something else while the commercials are on. I've noticed a lot more, American River Cruise commercials. I'm like, when did those become a thing again? Have they always been a thing, and they just weren't advertising for a while? Because I was like, that's actually kind of cool.
They do river cruises over in Germany a lot, and then Europe because the rivers are so wide and deep, so they can. But they're not like the Princess Cruise or the Carnival Cruise Line. You know, they're not that big. The boats are not that big, but the ones on the Mississippi are like steamboats. So they're smaller, and I admit I get seasick. So I have avoided cruises all of my life. And one of the things my sister wants to do is take a family trip on a cruise through the Mediterranean, specifically going through the Greek islands. She's a big Greek person. I mean, she loves everything Greek, except the food, which I don't understand. But, you know, all the Greek stuff, she just wants to see it all. And so...
How can you not like Greek food, though?
I don't know. She's weird. I don't know. She's weird. But she's always wanted to do that. And I've always balked because it was, you know, in a cruise on a ship at sea. And I was going to get seasick. And I didn't want to walk around with 10 patches behind each ear and that kind of thing. But, you know, I think a river would be a little bit less tumultuous, you know, so I don't know. It's worth looking into. And frankly, I don't know, just going out to sea and like, there's nothing there. At least, you know, on a river, you can see out, you know, either side and you can see land.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway. So, yeah, tonight we were going to talk about
the best advice our parents ever gave us.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the best advice our parents ever gave us. And I got to say, I started thinking about the advice that I got from my parents growing up. And yeah, I'm Hispanic, but yes, I'm Puerto Rican. And so my advice was definitely not American in style, but it served me well, you know, and some of it I did learn a lot from, you know, my parents, you know, basically, and mom didn't just tell me, you know, wear chanclas wherever you go. No, not that kind of advice. That was just taken. That was understood.
Always pack a machete.
She did say always carry a knife. That is something that she always said, because you never know if you need a knife to jimmy a lock open. You never know if you need a knife to cut up food. You never know if you need a knife if you need to prepare your dinner, like you know, you're out camping or something. Because we would catch rabbits, you know, when I was growing up, and you know, field dress them and everything, and my mom would clean them out, and she would make fricassee out of rabbit, and it was I miss that. It was so good. But she always said that a knife not only can save your life, but it can make things a lot easier in case you are stuck somewhere, or, you know, for whatever reason, you can always use a knife. And that always has stuck with me. And it's hell whenever I travel, because I have to go through all of my handbags to make sure that I remove every single knife, because I don't have my knives in my nightstand. I keep them all in separate handbags. I mean, that's how I carry my shit. So whenever I switch out stuff in my handbag, that way I'll have a knife in there already. I don't have to switch that out, right? So, but when I'm going through TSA, it can be a problem. And it has proven to be a pain in the ass, I admit. Because when I travel, I have to leave it behind, and then I don't have it with me, and it makes me feel naked because I'm so used to it. So, but that was probably one of the best pieces of advice my mom gave me, was always carry a knife.
So I think I finally figured out what was causing the issue. I fixed it. Hopefully it stays fixed now. Anyway.
Yay.
Sorry, that's why I wasn't really chiming in much. I was like, I think I found what the problem was, so I went in and made this computer take priority over everything else when it's active. It's like, all the bandwidth is mine when I'm online. Anyway. Yes, I'm that kind of dad. But no, I mean, always carry a knife. That was something, I mean, you know, that was something my dad always told me to do. I mean, I do now. And when I was a kid, I really kind of got out of the habit of carrying a knife because, I mean, there was a time when I was running around with kids that were like 4 and 5 years older than me. So they always had knives. So I never really worried about taking mine anywhere. And then it got to the point where I got into computers and stuff, so I stopped really going outside and especially when we started moving around because I didn't really make friends that easily when we started moving. So I had like 2 or 3 that I hung out with at school, and that was pretty much it. So I was always playing video games and stuff when I wasn't at school. So I kind of got out of the habit. I do it again now, and it's something that I taught to my kids. But yeah, that was something my dad always said is always make sure you have a knife with you because you're never going to know when you need one. Another one that he always told me, which you'd have to adjust for inflation today, but it was always make sure you've got $20 in your wallet because you never know when you're gonna need cash. Now it'd probably have to be like 100, but still.
Yeah, no, I remember my mom telling me that the knife thing, but my dad was the one that told me about not only carrying currency, but making sure that it was small currency. And the reason for that is that you never know if you're going to be somewhere where they cannot even break a 20. So make sure you get 1s and 5s. And also that way, you don't carry them, you know, if you're staying in a hotel, you don't carry your money with you all the time. You can hide it and carry only what you need in case, you know, they steal your purse or they steal your wallet. You still have some backup in there. And it's really funny because I did that when the last time I went to CPAC, which was 2 CPACs ago. And I'm looking through my purses because I'm going to go somewhere or whatever. And I find $80. Like, but they were all in 5s and 1s. So a friend of mine was actually, she was having issues meeting her, paying her bills at the end of the month. So I sent it to her and she was very grateful. And she asked me, I was like, I don't understand why you sent all these 5s and 1s. I mean, I'm grateful that you did, but why the 5s and 1s? I don't understand. Normally people send 20s or, you know, a 50 or 2 50s or $100, you know, something big. And I said, and I gave her the story and she's like, you kept it? You forgot? I said, yeah, I forgot. And I figured since I never used it, that meant I didn't need it. So I gave it to someone who did, you know, but she thought it was hilarious that I completely forgot I had money in my purse. And I'm like, I have forgotten shit in purses. I found a Snickers bar from the last trip I took to DC, which was in 2017. So I'm not really good about cleaning out my purses. Okay. I'll admit it up front. But that is still good advice to always carry just an extra little bit of money somewhere, not always on your person, but like keep it in your car somewhere. My aunt was very famous. She kept bills in her Bible. So there were always 10s and 20s in the Bible for, emergency money. But she was anal. It had to be an emergency. You couldn't just get it because, we're out of flour, blah, blah, blah. No, it had to be a true emergency. But, she always kept it in the Bible. So everybody knew that there was money there in case something happened to her and they needed, to take her on the bus to somewhere, like the big hospital outside of our main town or whatever. So, yeah, it's really a good practice to keep extra money somewhere just in case.
No, I mean it is really good advice. The one piece that out of all of the advice that I got growing up, the one thing that I really wished I would have listened to, because my dad tried to drill this into my head over and over and over again, and I think I've actually mentioned this one before, but it's when you start working, take $20 a paycheck and put it into a savings account and forget it's there.
Yeah.
Because if I had done that, I would be probably about 4 years away from being able to retire with the interest rates the way they are now. It probably would have only been about $500,000. But at that point, I could have closed the savings account out, put half of it in a high-yield savings account, and the other half into a 401k and just roll it over later. And still been able to retire with a decent chunk of change for putting back $20 a paycheck.
I'm trying not to laugh because I just read Alan's comment about what he keeps. The towel. Okay. Yes, I also carry an extra towel in the car.
Well, I mean, you never know when you're going to have to clean the...
Never know. You never know.
Never know.
Just remember, 42 in the towel, always. So, anyway. But he's right, he keeps money, he keeps ammunition, he keeps food, water, and towel in the car. Everybody should have a bug-out bag in their vehicle. And I cannot stress toilet paper enough. Because you never know where you're going to get stuck somewhere. And it's okay for a gentleman to go out into the woods and relieve himself. He can just wave it around and the last drops, fall off and you're fine. But girls can't do that. I do think that toilet paper should be in the bug-out bag.
Yeah, always. And since we're talking bug-out bags, this is going to sound really, really weird, but even for guys, have some tampons in your bug-out bag.
Oh, no, tampons and sanitary napkins are essential stuff. I have in my, I know this is not advice, but I do have first aid boxes in each vehicle. One of the vehicles actually came with it because we purchased the vehicle when we were in Germany, and in Germany it's a law that you must have that before you pick up your vehicle, so it comes with the vehicle. But I have tampons, I have sanitary napkins, I have vodka. Vodka is primo in a first aid kit. I cannot stress it enough. But because they're so absorbent, if you do get a serious gash, if you do break a bone and it is a compound fracture and it has, broken the skin or anything, tampons and sanitary napkins are essential. They really are.
Yeah. First time I told somebody, all the things they needed to have in a go bag, the first thing when I got to tampons, they're like, I'm a guy, what the fuck do I need those for? I was like, well, first of all, if you have a really bad nosebleed, they work really, really well. Second of all, they make really good bullet hole pluggers.
Yep. That's exactly. I cannot tell you the amount of times. In case some people don't already know, I was a military wife for 30 years, so I knew a lot of soldiers and airmen and sailors that were downrange. And one of the things that I always enjoyed doing was sending care packages to people in those specific, either the battalion that my husband was attached to, or, the particular mobile MASH that he was attached to, or whatever. So I would get a bunch of stuff ready. And I'm not kidding when I say that tampons were the number 2 requested item. You want to know what the number 1 was?
What was
it? Barbecue sauce. No lie, barbecue sauce.
Now I have Chili's old commercial stuck in my head.
It was, but because they would, if they are downrange and they have MREs, they don't have a lot of seasoning packets with the MRE. They just have what, the USDA says is one serving or whatever. So I would send bottles down there, and they would in turn put those in smaller containers, the containers for urinalysis, where the pee cups, those were perfect because they were completely sealed and they held just enough. So, and they could put it in one of their cargo pockets, But the tampons were very much requested, and they always had them in those cargo pockets in case something happened and they had to plug up a bullet hole quickly. I cannot tell you the amount of times that somebody said thank you because I had sent so many packages of those things. It sounds weird, but it works. I mean, it really worked.
Yeah, I mean, just like Al in the chat a second ago was like, you'd be surprised how many times I've fought off angry hordes of women with tampons. I'm like, no, that's what the chocolate nickelback's for. Throw the chocolate like chaff and run.
Yeah, so, but yeah, deviated a little bit from the original topic. But yeah, that's always really good idea to have that in a bug out bag or a first aid kit that you have in your vehicle, just in case.
So
it's excellent stuff.
We've been doing this now for almost a year, and we deviate from the topic every Friday, so I don't really...
All the time. It's like tradition.
The topic is guardrails, Aggie. You should have figured this out.
Off the rails. It should be named Off the Rails. She said off the rails, but we already do Off the Rails.
I already do that show on Sundays. Although I'm gonna have to I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna move it to, because now Monday's not really my day off anymore. So I'm trying to get back to having at least one.
Yes, that's true.
It's like every time I get my schedule situated, somebody's like, "Can we move the show?" I'm like,
Well, you have one Monday off a month.
Oh yeah, I know.
So that's at least you have that going for you, and that's nice.
Anyway, I'll figure it out one way or the other. But yeah, anyway. So what was another piece of advice you were given? I don't know if you ever noticed what I actually called the show. I kind of made a joke about what we were talking about.
No, I didn't notice.
Ancient wisdom from our betters.
Well, I know one thing that my mom taught me was that friendships will always change, and so should you, to accommodate them. But what she meant by that was that people are bound to change. Nothing stays the same. So don't expect it to. And this is true. The friends that I had in 5th grade when I got here are certainly people that I don't even know anymore. I mean, they still live here in this town, but I wouldn't, we never kept in touch. We never kept in contact. We went to 6th grade, and it was like they found other friends that were better than me. So they moved on. I mean, literally cut me off from one day to the next. So people do that. They will change. And so don't expect things to stay the same. And she pointed this out, because when things stay the same, bad things grow. It stagnates, So I always took that to heart.
I mean, and it's solid advice too. I mean, some of my longest friendships have basically just evolved over time, and we've just adjusted to the new normal. I mean, I'm still, we only talk usually a couple times a year now, but usually through text or Facebook. But I'm still friends with a friend I've had since kindergarten. there was a time that her dad and my mom thought we were getting married. No lie.
Wow.
They were joking around about it when we were in like 3rd and 4th grade because we were always around each other. And my mom and her dad were always like, yeah, I have a feeling if these two keep hanging out, they're going to get married. Yeah, that didn't happen because she moved away like a year later. But the funny thing is, I've always been like an overachiever in like the drama department and stuff. So we were acting out, I think it was Sleeping Beauty in kindergarten. And weirdly enough, I played the prince, she was Sleeping Beauty. So as part of the play, and we were just doing it in a classroom, I've been over to kiss her on the cheek, and I figured out how to make a kissing sound using the tongue and the back of my teeth. So everyone was completely convinced that I had kissed her, and they made fun of us for like 6 months. I'm like, I didn't, though. And she was like, well, it would have been okay if you did. And I'm like, well, dang.
Well, hello. I'm still friends with several people from high school, and I'm also friends with my ex-boyfriend from high school, my second boyfriend from high school. He and his wife are still very good friends of ours, and we visit often. And of course, I have a best friend from college, and she doesn't live far from me now, so we see each other about once every month. You know, we meet halfway and, you know, have lunch and talk about everything that's going on. And it's mostly her side because mine is pretty calm. You know, I just live in Nowheresville, but, you know, she and her husband bought acreage to build homes for both his parents and her parents. And then there's their youngest son married. And so he has a house on that acreage as well. So the whole, it's a compound. So of course she has to vent to somebody that understands and who understands better than a Puerto Rican who grew up that way. So, you know, we mostly talk about her stuff and it's fun, but outside of that, I don't have a lot of friends that I carried through. And that is probably due to the fact that part of my growing up was in Puerto Rico. But even in Puerto Rico, I didn't stay in that one school long enough. Like pre-K was one school, kindergarten was another school, first grade was another school, and then second, third, and fourth was another school. So, everybody that I met before second grade, I don't even remember. I mean, I can see them, but I don't know their names. I don't know what happened to them or anything. And then, those that were second, third, and fourth, I know 4 of them still to this day. And one of them broke my cousin's heart. So he is persona non grata to me. And the last time that I was in Puerto Rico, I literally threatened him in front of the chief of police. So, we're not really good friends. But it's cool. It's cool. The chief of police knew my parents, and he said, well, okay, just try not to do that again. It's like, okay, I won't.
Oh.
I think one of the best things that I learned from my dad. And I learned this, I want to say about when I was right before I turned 21. I came home from college and I was upset about something. I don't even remember what it was, but somebody had said something and it made me upset. And so my girlfriend Paige was coming home, and so she gave me a ride, and she drops me up at home, and I come in and everything, and my mom's all excited and my dad's all excited and my sister's all like, yay, she's here and everything. And they look at me, it's like, what's the matter? It's like, oh, it was a rough day, because we came straight from the last final I had, which was at 8:00 in the morning. So at 9:30, I meet her outside of her dorm bathroom, and then we get in the car, and it was a 6-hour drive. So it was a 6-7 hour drive back then. Before it became 70, it was still 55. So, my dad was like, why are you upset? And I told him why I was upset. Somebody said something and it hurt my feelings. And they said, do you know this person? And I said, no. Then why does it matter? And I was like, well, what do you mean? I said, it doesn't matter. And I was like, but Dad, and he looked at me, he's like, did I stutter? It doesn't matter. His opinion matters to no one but him. Why are you letting it get to you? And it was at that moment that I realized that my dad had never let anybody's opinion of anything get to him. He literally doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care. And that's when I realized my dad had never been offended. And he really doesn't care about anybody else's opinions. And one day he actually told me this. I was a lot older. I think we were hanging out at Christmas or something. And one of my sisters said that, it's so-and-so's opinions that blah, blah, blah. And my dad's looking at her straight in the face and says, opinions are just like your ass. Everybody has one. We all lost it because our dad normally doesn't speak that way. But he's right. And I took that to heart. To this day, I cannot think of anything since that point that has ever offended me. I refuse to let it offend me. My daughter freaked out when I referred to myself as spick. And I said, I refuse to give anybody power over that word. I said, they already took several words from other people that only other people can use. And she knew what I was talking about. And I said, I'll be damned if they're going to say that, spick is a bad thing. It's not. And she was like, Mom, are you sure? And I said, yes, I'm very sure. I've been here longer than you. And I'm very sure. The moment you start saying that this is a bad word, they're taking that power from you. Don't let them.
Well, that is true, and that's one of the things that why I have the biggest issue with them trying to make everything into hate speech. I'm like, there is no hate speech. You may not like what somebody says. That's like when somebody is screaming, what they've been screaming lately about Israel and everything else on college campuses. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's hate speech. No, it's idiotic speech, but it's not hate speech. Now, it's terroristic speech and should be treated as such. But I don't like having it called hate speech because hate speech has become something that just is about as meaningless as everything else anymore. Which is,
if it doesn't agree with somebody's opinion, it becomes hate speech, and you're like, but we can't have disagreements anymore. Since when?
And that kind of ties into one of the other things that my dad always told me, and I remember telling my kids, especially my boys, the same thing. I better not ever find out about you starting a fight, but if you're ever in one and you didn't start it, you better damn well finish it. And we've lost that in this country.
We actually have. And this is, you see one side try to go the other side into throwing the first punch, and I'm like, yeah, don't do it. Don't throw the first punch. But if you're in that fight, you better be able to finish it.
And the funny thing is, this ties into a story that I've told, I think, even on this very show before. But my son found that out firsthand in 7th grade because he had and his mom and I didn't know this because my son was one of those people like, I fight my own battles. I'm not going to tell you about them. And I didn't find out until afterwards. But there's a kid that was picking on him for weeks, and he kept turning the other cheek and turning the other cheek and turning the other cheek. And then once this last incident, the kid was talking smack to his face. He said, "Look, I'm done dealing with this. I've got to go to class." My son turned around and started walking away. The kid shoved him into the back, and he hit up one of the lockers. And my son just said, "Okay, that's it. You put hands on me." Turned around and decked the kid. Hit him so hard that he broke one of his teeth.
Damn.
And then the principal's calling me, the principal's calling my now ex-wife, and she didn't answer, and I did. Well, she didn't answer the first time, and I did. And then he didn't like what I had to say, so he tried to call her. And then she said, "No, my husband's going to come deal with it." Because I told him, because I said, so what's the deal? He's like, "Well, your son's being suspended for fighting." I'm like, "For how long?" "For 3 days, and we need somebody to come pick him up." And I'm like, "Okay, so what happened?" He's like, "Well, this kid's been picking on him for a few days, and he turned around and hit him, and we don't do that." I said, "So what is your exact policy when it comes to someone else who is a student putting hands on another student?" "Well, they're supposed to armadillo and scream for help."
Oh my God.
And I said,
they're supposed to take it?
And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Yeah, we have a policy that if someone starts putting hands on one of the students, because there's usually teachers around." I said, "Well, from what you just described to me, this went on for sounds like a good 2-3 minutes. Where was the teacher that was supposed to be around?" "Well, that's one of the things we're trying to find out." And I said, "So you expect my son to curl up in a ball and let somebody kick the crap out of him till a teacher shows up?" And he's like, "Well, that's our policy." I said, "Well, I'm going to come get him, and if you want to keep him out of school for 3 days, that's up to you. But if I see you when I get there, we're going to be testing out your armadillo policy."
Boy.
He wasn't there when I picked up my son, by the way.
Did the bully get suspended as well?
Yeah, they both did.
Well, at least that was fair.
But I was just like,
But
you expect them to just lay down and curl up
it's
in a ball and take it?
ridiculous. It's ridiculous when they...
Well, and think about this, though. My son, the one I'm talking about, is 24 now. So we're talking about like 10, 11 years ago. Imagine what it's like now.
Yeah. That's true. That's uber ridiculous. I can't even imagine. My son was bullied a lot after school. The kid was really smart, and he talked to my husband about it, and my husband said, "What do you have in your arsenal?" And my son didn't understand, but he put it in video game parlance so that he could. And my son was very strong at the time, but he did have a wicked vocabulary. And so he decided to use the vocabulary against his tormentors, and it worked. You know, they went after him one afternoon when he's walking home from school, and they said something to him, and my son just turned to him and was like, "That's rich coming from somebody with the vocabulary of a cabbage." And they didn't know what to do. They just stood there, and my son just kept walking, and they didn't bother him after that. So he was very proud of himself that they never had to have a physical altercation, but he figured out a way that he could rise above it and resolve it on his own. And I did tell him, if this keeps up, I will involve the school. And he says, "Really can't, Mom, because it happens well after school," because he had after school stuff going on, and then he would walk home from it. So it was, he was walking home an hour after school let out anyway. So there was nothing that the school could do about it. Nowadays, the school is telling us that, oh, yes, it doesn't matter how late, the school will be involved if any kids do anything wrong and everything. And I'm like, whoa. This is not your kid. It's after school. So that's a issue for another show anyway.
Well, so that's the funny thing, right? Because my son is a smartass like me, and that's actually, for the first few rounds with his kid, he basically made him look like an idiot in front of the entire hallway that he was picking on him in, and then the kid just finally decided he had enough. So, but anyway, but yeah, that was one of the things I guess stuck with me the most from advice with my dad is, I better not ever find out that you started a fight, but if you're ever in one, you better finish it. And I've had that same conversation with pretty much every single one of my kids, even my daughters. It's like, look, I better not ever figure. I'd better if I ever get calls from the school, anything else, I better not find out that you were the ones that started them. But if somebody starts some stuff with you, you better be the one finishing it. And I will teach you what you need to know to make sure that you can. And I did, because that's my job.
I totally get that. I know my dad always, he abhorred violence. He knew that it was necessary. Don't get me wrong. But his father ended up serving time for involuntary manslaughter. So for him, being in a fight he has this mental block, you know. So I've always tried to guide the kids into non-physical confrontations with their bullies to see if that works. And it has worked for the most part. But there was one time where these two kids were just teasing my youngest, and she, yelled back at them. And then they went to their mother and told the mother what my daughter said. And my daughter, and that woman came and hunted me down and threatened me. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever encountered. And then she got back in her car and she drove away. And I was like, and I turned to my daughter. I was like, why did you say those things to them? And then she says, because they said these things to me. And she repeated everything. And she has my memory. So she remembers everything. And I said, well, I guess they didn't tell her what they said. But after that, those boys would see me, they would go running because they knew that I knew. And so after that, I was, I went and I walked my daughter home to and from school. And I made sure that they understood that she was off limits. And of course, nowadays she's like, oh, Mom, you overreacted. I was like, you didn't hear what that woman said to me. That was an overreaction. She literally threatened me. And the police said there was nothing that they could do about it because they were not witnesses to it. So I was screwed, And I was like, yeah, this tracks. So, I tried to teach them the non-confrontational things. However, I did make sure that they all learned self-defense. So they were all in self-defense classes for quite a long time. And I told them, I said, and my daughter specifically, I said, remember, everything in your purse is a weapon. And they're like, what? It's like, everything in your purse is a weapon. You can use everything in your purse as a weapon. They were like, nuh-uh. And I dumped the purse out, the brush. You see those bristles? You rub them across their eyes, they're blinded for a while. You see this butt end? You can shove this underneath their chin. It will hurt. And I grabbed the next thing, and I would tell them, what they can do with all this stuff. And they're looking at like, where did you learn all this stuff? And I said, an episode of Facts of Life. And they lost it. They lost their shit. But it was true. I did learn that from an episode of The Facts of Life. And, it stuck with me. So I taught my daughters, the stuff in your purse is a weapon. Everything in your purse can be a weapon. Seriously.
Well, that's when they used to use TV to try to teach life lessons, not the shit they use it for now. So.
Oh, man. Too funny.
But yeah, so one of the funniest things that I remember, and this isn't advice from a parent or a family member, but during my law enforcement training, hearing the instructor talk about always carry your number 2 pencil, and I'm like, why would... Because, well, first of all, you want to be able to write your notes in something that you can correct if you need to before you put them in your final reports in ink. And I said, okay, that makes sense. He said, second of all, if you're ever in a hand-to-hand scuffle, Ticonderoga number 2 pencil can go through the eye into the brain.
Hello, John Wick.
Well, this was pre-John Wick, my dear. This was like 90s.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
This was 90s.
Remember John Wick?
But yeah, so that was something that had never occurred to me. Because, yeah, I mean, I've always thought about, how, and this was advice from my granddad. If you don't have a knife and you need to be able to break something or get into something, don't forget that your keys have sharp edges. And that was something else I had to test once.
It's scary when you're put in that position, you know?
But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, most of my life advice came from men, so I didn't really get any of the, like, the, you know, lead with your heart kind of crap. Like, you know, a lot of girls, well, my mom always said to do this. Yeah, no, my mom didn't really give advice. My mom was a kid when she started having kids, so she didn't figure out how to give advice until much, much later. But yeah, my parents, my dad was always the advice giver in the family. Still is, actually. He'll be the first one to give you his opinion, whether you want it or not. And everybody wonders where I get it from.
One thing that my mom did tell me, and it was something that she did not particularly care to tell me, but she said that was a fact of life, was that there were no equals in a marriage. And it's true. There are no equals in a marriage. There are complements in a marriage. Mm-hmm. You complement each other, but you're not equal to each other. And in a way, there was a certain underlying bitterness of it, because she sometimes resented the fact that she stayed home, and I'm like, because she had been a working girl before, you know, we moved to the States, and she kind of missed that. She doesn't miss it now. Let me tell you, that's gone. She's quite happy now to have been a stay-at-home mother, but she did say that there are no equals in a marriage. There are only complements. You will compliment him, he will compliment you, but you're not equal to him and he's not equal to you. That will never happen. And, you know, I was like, how could you say that? Of course I'm equal to him, blah, blah, blah. But as my marriage grew and my family grew, I realized, no, there's a certain valid truth to that. I am not equal to my husband in most ways. Admittedly, I'm learning how to chop down a tree, but he knows better than I do. He does certain things far better than I do. He has certain tasks that are his because of the fact that he is male and I'm female. Just as there are certain tasks that fall to me because I'm female and he's not. So it is a complementary thing rather than an equality thing. And I mean, it did take me a while to get used to that. It took me a few years. But it's completely true. And once I actually accepted it for what it was, it actually made marriage more easy. I didn't have to compete to be like him. I didn't have to learn things that he did or knew, you know, and some things were very difficult. I just never could do them, you know, that kind of thing. And yeah, this applies to gaming too. I never took to it. Forget it. It's never going to happen. But, you know, certain board games like chess, I could never grasp it. I tried many times. It's just not in me. It's just not in me, you know. And I felt pressure to be just like him, to be equal to him, you know, in most respects. But once I realized that, no, I don't have to be equal to him. I have to complement him. It became a lot easier. The focus was on complementing him in his strengths and, you know, shoring up his weaknesses just as he did for me. So that took a lot of pressure off when my mom told me that, once I realized what it was, you know. But at first, you know, you're listening to this going, you burned bras in order, you know, to be equal, and now you're telling me I can't be? What the hell? You know. But then, you know, when you realize that that's what she's talking about is that there's no equality because we're two different people. We're two different sexes. We're two different, period. So that was probably what I like to call underhanded advice. because I didn't understand it at first, but eventually it came like, oh, okay, I get it now.
So, my next piece is actually advice that I gave to one of my children during her wedding. Because it was something that had kind of occurred to me, especially since I had just gone through a divorce 3 months prior. And unfortunately, since I was the pastor at the wedding, I also kind of became their wedding counselor, because after watching her and me and her stepmom go through a divorce after being together for almost 25 years, she was like, well, if you guys can't make it, how the hell are we supposed to? Talk about having really fun conversations while you're trying to heal your own wounds and also trying to protect your child and get them ready for actually being married to somebody else. But so it actually worked itself into part of the sermon that I gave at their wedding, and that is, when you are married to somebody, society teaches you that marriage is supposed to be 50-50. That's not possible. Marriage always has to be 100-100. The difference is you don't know when it's going to be you giving the 100, and you don't know when it's going to be your partner giving the 100. So if one of you is always giving 100, no matter which one of you is slacking, somebody's always there. And that's the point that you need to get to, is remember that this is a partnership. It is you against everything else, not you fighting each other about everything else. And that is probably some of the best advice that I could give anyone in a relationship, is stop making the problems between you two. Whatever problems you're looking at, whatever obstacles you're trying to overcome, you have to figure that out together. If you're each trying to figure it out on your own, or you're arguing with each other about how to figure it out, you're never going to figure it out. You have to be a team. Once the rings go on, and in some cases even before, it's you and that other person against the world. And if it's not, then you don't need to be in it, because that was the mistake that I made, because that's where I thought I was, and it turns out I never really was. And it's like I was telling you, I think I mentioned this part off the air, but part of what's made this last couple of weeks so hard with trying to get ready for the exterminator and getting things put back into shape around here that I've let kind of fall away for the last 3 years, because I've been climbing out of a very deep, dark hole, and there's just things that I was like, I don't have the energy to deal with it. One of those was the fact that she basically left her entire life behind when she left me. She took her car, her phone, her laptop, and about 3 days worth of clothes. Everything else is still here. So I've been having to go through all of it as we get ready for the exterminator. And that's when it dawned on me. Her entire life with me, she was a chameleon. That was it. She became what I needed her to be to get what she wanted out of me, and then once she didn't need that anymore, she was done. Which was a really hard realization, but at the same time was kind of the final piece that I needed to realize that I've been beating myself up over something that's been fake the entire time. And I know you and Jen and everybody else tried to tell me that, but I wasn't ready to see it yet. But that is one of the worst things. You have to be ready to see it. Last year was pretty rough on me. But I'm a very private person. Most people, actually nobody knew. I know, because you didn't tell me until after it was like well after the fact, and I'm like, woman, with as much as I have come to you.
Brad knew some of it, but not really. Not a lot of it. As a matter of fact, most of it, most people don't know. But it was a really rough year for me, and I had to contend with some losses that were extremely unexpected, and you're never too old to learn life lessons. That's going to be continuing for you forever. And I remember seeing on Twitter, one of my followers was talking about how, sometimes, the people that hurt you, the people that are no longer there for you, you need to cut them out of your life. And I started thinking, do I really have to cut them out of my life? How? I mean, sometimes they will leave voluntarily on their own, but I don't I can't close the door because something may happen to necessitate them coming back through it. And I'm reminded of all people, Emily Osment, who was, remember the TV show Hannah Montana?
Oh, yes.
She was Hannah Montana's best friend. And after the show canceled and everything, and Hannah she changed her name to Miley Cyrus and decided to go on a solo career and everything, she unfollowed from Twitter, unfollowed Emily Osment. And one of Emily's followers asked her, why are you still following Miley Cyrus when she cut you off? And I still remember what that young woman said. She said, just because they leave you doesn't mean that you should leave them. You never know what they're going through. You never know when they're going to need you. Always leave that door open, because if you close it, you're closing part of your heart, and that part may die. And that stuck with me. And I'm like, this 24-year-old is actually teaching me a life lesson. I mean, that never happens. Most of the time, your life lessons come from people older than you that have been around far longer. But that stuck with me. And so, even though this mutual was saying very logical stuff, and I just could not take that to heart. I just could not close that door, because it's true. Once you close that door, you run the risk of indifference. And once you become used to becoming indifferent towards somebody, that's going to hurt how you live your life. And I can't do that. I can't take that step, So I learned something from a teeny bopper. Well, not really a teeny bopper, but, a celebrity, and she was right. I still leave that door open, even though people have walked out of my life and have decided, our friendship is just not going in a direction I want, or, they've decided they really weren't my friend, or, that kind of thing. I can't close that door. I can't even close the door to people who have passed away. And a lot of people wonder about that. And then they're like, but, they passed on. I mean, why do you still talk about them like they're here? I said, because they're here to me. They are here to me. I was on Facebook, and how they have the little memories? I clicked on the memories, and there was a post that I had written 10 years ago. And I kid you not, out of the 10 people that had remarked on that post, 8 of them had passed away. And oof. I just started crying. I was just in tears. I was overwhelmed. But then I realized I still talk about these people like they're here. I still, every so often, I'll go to their page and leave a note saying, still thinking about you, or missing you, or, anything like that, to keep the memory going in me, because that's how I honor them, that kind of thing. So closing a door is not something that I can do. As a matter of fact, I can't think of any time that I've ever closed a door on somebody, living or dead. I just can't bring myself to do it. Well, my sisters will tell me that I'm stupid. But then again, I look better than they do, so I win. It's a big running joke in my family. Apparently, I'm the one that looks the youngest, even though I'm the oldest of the 4. And they don't understand what I do. I'm like, well, for one thing, I wear sunscreen.
For another, I'm not a hateful shrew. Oh, wait.
So, but I can't tell it. Moisturize me. Remember?
Oh, good Lord, I'm having a Doctor Who flashback. Thank you for that. Oh, look, it's Lady Cassandra.
Moisturize me. Oh my God, she used to freak me out, but it was so funny.
You're not the only one with a good memory, remember?
But yeah, so that was that was not a piece of advice from my mom, but it is a piece of advice that I've taken to heart. It's kind of a corollary to her, not being equal thing. So, anyway.
So Jeff from the chat actually had a good piece of advice he got from his aunt. Basically, it was actually from his grandfather who passed away before his first marriage. Always hold your loved one's hands because it becomes much harder to raise the other in anger.
That is very good advice. I actually do believe that is quite possibly one of the best pieces of advice I've ever read.
Yeah,
I'm making a note of that.
That's up there. That should be like on a Hallmark card or something. That's how good that is. On this 25th anniversary, something like that.
I just celebrated 30 years of marriage, but Father's Day is coming up.
Nice. So how was your Mother's Day, by the way, anyway?
Oh, I just spent it doing nothing. I did laundry, and I cooked for my dad. But I got calls from my kids, so that was nice. I think my mom forgot. She called me the following day. Oh yeah, it was Mother's Day, wasn't it? It's like, yes. Keep in mind, I called her for Mother's Day.
It's like, yeah, remember I actually called you on Mother's Day.
Sometimes she forgets that we're mothers too, but which is funny. It's very funny. Sometimes she still sees us as we're in high school. But, this is the same woman that can't stop talking about her new nephew that's coming, not nephew, grandson that's due in about 10 weeks, I think. So.
I think Jeff is trolling us right now. Because you just talked about Finland not being real, and there's a Finland weather report in the bottom corner of the chat right now. Where you guys' book recommendations normally are, there's the Helsinki, Finland forecast.
Oh, goodness. That's funny. Well, I'm sure it's really nicely, it looks really nice over in Helsinki. Still need a jacket.
Yeah. Apparently it's 52 degrees and clear. So
nice.
Brisk weather, but probably pretty warm for them, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what their weather's like since they're imaginary and stuff.
I'm guessing it's cold. I mean, for an imaginary place, I don't know. So.
Now I have the Willy Wonka song in my head.
I'm trying to think what other pieces of advice. But that talking about that pencil thing, I always carry a notepad and pencil in my car, and it's a habit from before the smartphones, before there was GPS and all that. And I still have maps in my car, believe it or not. But that's just habit. That's just because I'm old-fashioned, I guess. But the notepad and pencil is, in case, I need somebody's phone number for some reason, in case I need instructions for, I'm visiting somebody and they tell me, you're going to need this code. I'm not allowed to have my phone out. So it's nice to have the notepad to that page where the code is at, so I can get in wherever I'm going. Just little things like that. Random things if I need to pick this up at the store, and I write it there, and I just keep adding to it until, okay, now I can go to the store and pick all this stuff up. But, it's always handy to do that also for memory reasons. Like today, you and I were talking about what's the plan, And I'm like, honestly, I have no idea. I can't think of anything. I haven't thought of anything. I haven't given it thought, blah, blah, blah. As a matter of fact, until you sent me a message, I had forgotten it was Friday. I thought it was still Thursday. So, usually at home, I do have a notepad where I put notes down about stuff that I may want to talk to about during the week. But I didn't have that notepad with me. So, that's always, a bit of advice that bit of advice I actually got from my grandmother, because she always carried paper and pencil in her handbag wherever she went. And it was really sad when my mom was clearing out her things after she had passed, and she found all of these clutches. She didn't have a over-the-shoulder handbag. She always carried a clutch. A lady carries a clutch. She was 96 and she refused to have a handbag over her shoulder. My mom is clearing all of these out and she's opening them. They all have paper and pencils. And my mom just burst into tears, when she saw that.
Aww.
But I got that idea from my grandmother, to always have something to write on. Because, I can't rely on my memory all the time. And, as she was getting older, she couldn't either. So.
Yeah, I have noticed as I've gotten older, there are things I'm like, I used to be able to remember this stuff so easily. Now I'm having to write stuff down. And it's like, ugh. I mean, it's still 10 times better than anybody else's memory in my family, which is why anytime anything goes sideways, they're the first ones on the phone with me going, can you remind me to do this? Can you remind me to do that? I'm like, can you not write shit down? But sure. But anyway. No, I think one of the other interesting pieces of advice that I've actually modified for my kids to a point, it's not even really the same thing, but it kind of led to that thought, was one of the things my granddad always told me when I was a kid. Well, two things: make a plan. Well, figure out the plan, devise the plan, follow the plan, complete the plan. And then the other thing that he always said was, make sure you have a routine for the day, but don't become so set in your routine that you miss opportunities to do other things. And I don't know how that made me think of this, but it was driving me crazy a few weeks ago because I was driving around with my son, and every time he goes anywhere, he's got GPS. Doesn't matter where he's going. Doesn't matter if he's been there a million times. He tells his phone where he's going, and his phone tells him how to get there. I finally just looked at him and said, look, son, life is not always a race. Turn your GPS off. I said, one, you need to start figuring out that you know where you are for when things go sideways or for if your phone dies so that you know how to get back home. And I said, for two, half of the fun when I was your age was going somewhere and getting lost and finding new stuff. And you guys are missing all of that because I'm going where I'm going and I'm going to get there and I'm going to do that and then I'm going to... That's not what life is supposed to be. Life is not a series of checkpoints.
Nope, I totally agree. Today, last night I was having issues sleeping, so I grabbed my phone and I decided, spur of the moment, hey, is there a Joann's Fabrics around here? So I looked it up, and sure enough, there was one not too far from the house. Made mental note to go tomorrow, which was today, and I did. Yarn was on sale. I was very happy camper. So, but coming back, my dad wanted to go. So, we went, we did all that. We walked around Five Below. He loves that store because it's just all sorts of little junky stuff and everything. But it's fun to walk around and see what they have. And then I happened to mention something about the university. Oh, there's a building not too far from here it's in the process of being built, and my dad said that's going to be a new hospital. I'm like, this place, there are more hospitals here than there are people now. I swear to God. That whole area is a hospital complex, but that particular building was being built, and he said it's probably for the it's going to be the university hospital for the medical school. And I said, we have a medical school here? He says, yeah, let me show you where it's at. Just drive. And I'm like, okay. And there was no GPS. There was just my dad directing me and everything. And all of a sudden, all of these little streets that we were taking, things started coming back to me from growing up around here. And it was really neat. So, and he did. He took me to the medical school on the campus. And as we're driving, he points to a series of buildings and says, "You remember what that is?" And I look and I was like completely horrified because it was where I spent 7th grade. And I was like, oh my God, it's still standing. I did not like 7th grade.
Why not?
But it was a series of buildings that had been the original university that then became the high school and then became a middle school. Well, it was a junior high and then a middle school. So.
What the hell? Sorry, my computer's doing something stupid.
So it was kind of nice to see the place of my torment in 7th grade and everything. It was kind of cool. But taking all of those back streets, you know, I saw little houses where my friends used to live. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if there's, you know, their parents are still here or not. And yes, like a couple of them, I found out after I got home that, yeah, they're still living in those houses. It was a trip. But also there was a lot of growth. I mean, there were things that I just did not recognize. And there's this new building right off of where the old high school was that I'm looking at it going, this looks new. What the hell is this? Turns out we have a new city hall. I'm like, well, okay. You know, before our city hall was, I sort of got it looks like a barn. But now it's all nice and shiny and glass all over the place. So it's pretty cool.
Oh,
but,
modern and stuff now. Woohoo.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of GPS simply because it does take away from the adventure part of your destination. And that's the whole point. The destination is not the point. The journey is the point. So when you're already, okay, turn here and turn there and everything. Okay, if I'm going to my new doctor's appointment, yeah, I'll use the GPS. I get it. But if it's a town where there's an antique mall or something like that, I just drive in the general direction of town and see what I find in the way, you know. And sometimes it's not always the shortest route. Sometimes it's the longer route. I'll actually go, oh, but there are these 2 other towns on this side. So let me go through those 2 towns before I hit the other one, you know, instead of going directly to the town of choice. But yeah, it's for me, it's always been the journey. And, you know, they always, even in The Mummy, I think it was The Mummy or The Mummy 2, where Ardeth Bay says, only the journey is written, not the destination. We already know the destination. The journey is the fun part.
And that is so true, though. And I mean, it's like I said, it's like we've gotten away from that somehow. And I really wish we could find our way back to it. One of the things that I never really understood when I was a kid that my dad told me, and it's probably the last thing that I remember that I wanted to talk about, is always make time for Sunday drives.
Oh my gosh, yes. That was, growing up, that was the thing that we looked forward to. And I've done that with my dad, except not just Sunday. I mean, like today, we took a drive and everything. But yes, the whole Sunday drive and it was when we first got here and we saw that there were highways. We had no idea what a highway was. Okay. We had no concept of it because they didn't have them in Puerto Rico where we lived. But they had picnic areas and we were like, oh, we could have a picnic. So every Sunday, my mom would pack a little picnic with Ritz crackers and salami and some, you know, Kraft cheese or whatever we had. And we would go and we would have a picnic right there on one of the picnic tables. And it was, for us, it was like the most awesome thing. And my parents weren't spending a lot of money. I mean, just the gas and the crackers and the cheese and the salami. But for us, that was the adventure. Being on this really wide road with other cars, going really fast, that blew our minds. Honest to God, that blew our minds. So I totally get it.
And I think it's honestly why, as I get older, I find myself turning more and more to country music, which is funny because I used to make fun of my dad so bad for that. My dad, being a child of the 50s, absolutely hated the disco era. So that's when he started turning to country. And so me, being born in the 70s, I liked a lot of the 80s rock and then even the 90s rock and the early 2000s rock. And there is some stuff that I still like now. But I find myself listening more and more to the stuff that I grew up listening to. And if I'm not listening to that, I'm listening to country. Now, there are only a handful of current country artists that I can stomach as well, because the new stuff that's going around doesn't really count as country to me. So I guess I really have gotten to that age that I'm like, get off my lawn. I like what I like. Leave me alone. But yeah, one of them was a song that I tormented my now girlfriend with for weeks. And she kept, well, one of these days you're going to forget. I'm like, I don't think you remember who you're talking to, but sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of country music, but now I like it, but I like the old stuff. I like the bluegrass. I gotta admit, I like the bluegrass. I like the stuff pre that country pop, pre the crossover.
Yeah. I mean, I think, honestly, for me, other than, like, I like some of Jelly Roll's stuff, which he's kind of a crossover. I do like, and for some reason his name is escaping me right now, which is funny, because, like I said, usually my mind is like, oh, that guy, and I'm like, yeah, no, can't think of his name. But anyway, he sings the song that I've tormented Zelda with. I like a couple of his. But, I mean, for me, other than that, I think the newest I really get, as far as stuff that I really like country-wise, is Toby Keith. That was my line.
But yeah, I still listen to George Strait, The King, and it's heartbreaking. But Randy Travis suffered that stroke, so. But now he sings Christian music, so he's recovered quite well. But now he's just a Christian artist. But all his stuff, I loved the sound of his voice. To me, it was just that timbre was perfect in my ear, which kind of freaked out my sisters because I didn't care for country music. But Randy Travis, my God, I would crawl over their corpses to go watch his show.
Well, see, like with me, I think it's starting to trigger like the nostalgia thing, because my dad was the one that was always big in us taking trips to the lake when he was off work, or just Sunday drives or whatever, and it was always country music. So I remember listening to him, and if you guys have ever heard me sing, one of these days I'm going to get my dad to record something, because I have been trying to get him to do it for forever, because he can sing circles around me. But that's one of the things that I remember. I remember one of the first times, because my dad remembers when I was going through puberty and I had a Walkman and couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. And that was how he always remembered me singing. Well, several years ago, it was actually right around the time that I got into choir in high school. We were hanging out for a weekend, and the old Randy Travis song, Digging Up Bones, came on, and my dad just belts that one out. So I started harmonizing with him, and my dad pulled over. He's like, "When did you learn how to do this?" I said, "Dad, I told you I'm in choir and stuff now." He said, when did, yeah. He actually had me help him sing one of the songs at his wedding, so I was kind of proud of that. But yeah, part of that love for country music, I think, is that it's starting to trigger nostalgia with me, because my dad loves to sing too, and now half the time when I'm listening to a song, because of how my memory is, I remember him singing it and how much he enjoyed it. And I wish I could find it, because my stepmom actually captured him on his front porch or back porch one night, just sipping on a drink, smoking a cigar, and singing along. And he found out she posted it and made her take it down. I was like, damn it, I knew I should have saved that. But anyway.
That's a pity. It really is. That's a pity.
No, it really is, because, like I said, I didn't even know how musical that side of my family was until after my grandfather and my grandmother had both passed away on my paternal side. But I mean, that's my granddad. When my dad was little, my granddad owned almost all of the town of Spencer, which is a small little town outside of Midwest City here in Oklahoma, and he owned almost all of it. And apparently, it was because they used to write, produce, and sing music professionally, and I had no idea.
Wow. So it's hereditary. That's pretty cool.
Apparently. Because, yeah, pretty much that whole side of the family sings. It's fun when we get together, because somebody will turn on a radio, and it's like we just naturally start falling into our parts, and everybody's like, holy crap.
Well, I guess we're at the top of the hour.
Yes,
we're a little past, so.
A little bit over, but that's all right.
That's all right. So I know that you're doing quite a lot. So take a deep breath and tell us where we can find you, Rick.
Well,
because it's going to be a list.
I'll be on a slightly modified schedule again this coming week, because Tuesday I will have to be out of the house during the day again. So the Rick Robinson Show will start airing again this next week on Wednesday. Of course, that one is usually Tuesday through Friday between the hours of 3 and 5. And then, so that first. And then tomorrow night is a makeup juxtaposition, as long as Orty is available. We still need to finish the other half of the whole CIA, MK Ultra, LSD thing with JFK. And so we're going to finish that up. And
yeah, that's a good one.
And then Sunday, America Off the Rails. It'll probably be the last Sunday I do this one, I think, because I'm going to try to figure out if there's somewhere else I can park it. I guess for now I'll probably keep doing it on Sundays, because it's only an hour either way. I'm just trying to get to the point where I have at least one day where I'm not trying to do at least something. But because there's still administrative crap I have to do even on my day off, so. Other than that, we'll go into a lot of the stuff that I do producing for you in a minute when you go through your list, so I'm going to stay off of most of that. Then on Wednesday nights, we do the Whatever Show with myself and Stacy at 7 p.m. Eastern. I produce for the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then now every other every other Wednesday is Talk Murder to Me. So for the next couple of weeks, I think that might be where I move rails. We have a show potentially coming in to fill in that other 2-week period, but I don't want to say anything until they officially tell me that they're definitely going to be doing it. So once I know,
So I hear.
but once I know for sure, you guys will know. And then Thursday night, except for during Nader season, it's usually Jen and Rick, 10 p.m. Eastern. We haven't been able to do that one very much lately, because 2 weeks ago I had weather. A week ago I had weather. This week she had weather, because, living in the same general area. And then Friday nights usually hanging out with you, and then every other Saturday night doing juxtaposition. When I'm not doing all that, you can find me as a contributor at twitch.com, which I plan on getting back to probably some point this weekend. And the Loftus Party podcast, I produce that one. It usually drops on Tuesdays. And then also a contributor at loftusparty.com, as well as misfitspolitics.com. And if you need more of me than that, and let's face it, you don't, you can always, or you need therapy, you can always follow along with me on most social media platforms at RowdyRick73. I think that's it, other than my name's Rick, I'm a workaholic, and my last meeting was forever ago. Where can folks find you?
Well, you can find me at Aggie Rican and at Aggie the Barkeep. Those are over on X. You can find me Tuesday nights doing the Cocktail Lounge, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, with the affable and quaffable Brad Slager. You can find me 8:30 p.m. Eastern Friday nights doing He Said, She Said with our beloved producer, Rick. Last Wednesday of every month, we do Toxic Masculinity, where the guys, G, Orty, Rick, and Andrew get together, and we host a babe. Not a bar babe. I'm the bar babe, but we host a babe of the month. And that's the last Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern. And Jeff and I had started our book podcast. We had to punt for the 10th of June. That's our next installment. But henceforth, after that one, it'll be the first Monday of every month at 8:30 p.m. Eastern as well. And I think that's it for me. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you managed to rope a spouse into doing the new one.
Well, I really enjoyed listening to both of them. And I was like, they're better at this than I am. And I really do think they should have their own show.
Well, you got your wish, because when she put the blurb out, you weren't listed anymore, and I'm like, hey, I think you've managed to extricate yourself.
I think I convinced her. Yeah. So, but I do think I think she's more comfortable with him because she knows what she can banter with. So I think it's going to be a great show. I can't wait. Honestly,
it's a great playoff. When he stepped in and started helping her with stuff, I was like, we really probably should have just had him do this from the beginning.
Yeah. So it was a one-off, but it was fun. And I did have a lot of fun with that, but I prefer to listen to this stuff more than anything. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we hope you have a great evening today.
Have a great night, everybody. And it's Friday night, so if you're not smoking or drinking, what the hell's wrong with you? Bye.